All right. Welcome to the To Be Alive podcast, everybody. This is your host, Akash. Today's guest is Tim. And Tim, what's your last name?
My last name is unknown to the online world.
Fair.
At least for now.
Tim Unknown. That's who we're talking to today.
Quite fitting, actually.
Right. So Tim and I met on X. I don't know, maybe 2 years ago. It's been some time now, and I know we met through kind of. I think there was some spirituality overlaps, I would say, in what we were talking about, and that's what initially drew us to one another's profiles. And then you took a bit of a break, if I recall, from posting online. So I'd love to hear, just from your perspective, what have the last couple of years of your life looked like? If you want to just give the audience a background of who you are and where you are today.
I think I want to go back a little bit, at least, to the time of starting university, because this is really what brought forth all of this unfolding, also what I do online. And in my official, quote-unquote, real career, I'm working in law. So I studied law in university. And after that in Germany, so I'm from Germany, if you've not already noticed from my accent, there is a second stage to this. After university, you have to go through a 2-year period where you train that to then become a lawyer. But all of this process started in university because law, maybe in every country, it's this way. It's very challenging. There's a lot to memorize, a lot of simply content you have to memorize and also be able to apply to yourself. And all of this had a huge impact on my mental health as the years and semesters went on. Also my results compared to the school days, I always had perfect grades without doing anything really. I was always very popular and so on. So I had a very protected and easy and good time in school. But in university, this flipped on its head because it was so anonymous in university that no one really saw you. I had the feeling, and also the results, the grades I got turned much worse. Although I put in much more effort, so I would simply increase the amounts of effort as time went on, but it didn't show in the results I got. And this, of course, led me to a lot of internal friction. Also, I had this problem of, I knew in the back of my mind that I had all these questions of meaning, of God, of purpose in life, all the big ones, the popular ones, which really started to be my companion from early childhood on, but I didn't update them to growing up and becoming an adult. And but the study of law was so intense that there was no room for it. So all of this came to its peak as I had to write the final exams in university, which in the process of writing these exams, I turned sick, of course, also. It was really I would describe it as really suffering. It was just so much intensity, so much coming together that it was really the peak effort I ever exerted in my life. And after this, I really plummeted like this. I dropped simply from all of this effort. I could simply die, essentially. I describe this as not going from 100 or something to 0, but to minus 100, like this full dive into complete exhaustion, complete also, I would say, if we want to put it in these terms, ignorance about true nature. And But out of this great degree of suffering, I then came into contact with the practice of meditation, the wonderful practice of meditation. First through mindfulness, and but it became something else quickly because I didn't like the guided meditation stuff, and I made it into a practice of simply sitting, which I still to this day, still do till this day, because in my mind, meditation is really not something we do, but it's what we are. I would even go as far as to say that it's not about doing meditation, but like it's a quality simply of our being. It's to become meditative. It's also what Sadhguru says. So Sadhguru has had a lot of impact on me. I first came into contact with him through his book Inner Engineering, where a lot of this kind of thing started. Also, I love that he has this holistic understanding. So there were chapters on like the body, your mind, emotion, thought, energies, and so on. Then it was the first time really where I had came into contact with all of these Eastern traditions, especially in this case the yogic and mystical traditions. And from there on out, it was really this going, as he says himself, this going inward, collapsing in on yourself. The only way out is in, he also says. And in the first days, or in the first weeks and months even, in this practice of meditation, there I first had to do a lot of heavy lifting. I called it today in a post. It's really these big ones, this what if there is no meaning, who am I even, this introspection of, is there someone, what is all of this about, is there God, what is death, and so on. But it's the way in which I confronted these topics was not so much intellectual as I had been doing before, but it was experiential, it was existential. With my being, I went through these topics, and really the practice was like simply sitting and then to see what came up, what trigger, what like big dark cloud came up. And then I would simply, it was also a practice of madness, pure madness. And I just dove into the dark cloud in pure hope. At the core of my being, even back then, was this hope that someday all of this would lighten up, hopefully a lot, like for happiness and joy to come in. But first I was like a lunatic fanatic, going through all of these clouds, through all of these storms, and really like immensely suffering also doing this process, but not in the sense of being the victim of this, but letting it all flow through me, like trying to dissolve all this pent up stored emotion, also like visiting all the stored thoughts or beliefs which I had, and ultimately to dissolve all of this which I know myself to not be, or at least in this way of talking. And more or less this led me to like starting to write online, but this was also development, because there's still this question of if I should continue work in law as my formal career, or to see what might or might not come out of all this online activity. So yeah, maybe a bit of a long answer, but hopefully it was insightful.
That was a beautiful answer. Wow. Thank you for sharing the story.
Thank you.
Wow, I have so many questions about it. So when you first started to meditate, I think that what you said about meditation, by the way, really resonates, because I also meditate the exact same way. I used to follow guided meditations, and something about it never stuck with me. It felt like I was just trying to fulfill like a check, like check a box kind of thing. Like, oh, if you meditate, then you'll get these benefits, right? And something in my body knew that that wasn't, some intelligence in me knew that wasn't true. Like, that's not how I want to meditate. So, um, I also did the thing where like I would meditate and feel whatever, like I call it whatever is loudest within me. I give that my attention and I would just sit with it. And for a long time, it was also like, maybe I can dissolve it by just being with this sensation as long as I possibly can in my body, right? And just stay with it, be patient with it. Um, so I really relate to that. And I think that's kind of changed now for me, where it's become more about like, no. So I did a Vipassana retreat 2 months ago. And if you're, are you familiar with the
Yeah,
technique at all? Okay.
sort of.
So
I know that it's like a silent retreat.
yeah, and there's a technique that they teach you there, to pay attention to your sensations, similar to how you're describing. Um, but the goal of it isn't so much to like dissolve the darkness away, so much as to notice how the mind wants to change what it's observing,
Mhm.
right? So that was that was a huge shift for me, with with meditation, because I realized I was trying to go get somewhere with it, and then I kind of realized like, wait, just observing the craving for this to be something else, or they call it the aversion to what is here. Just noticing that kind of orientation, um, creates this spaciousness that I get to explore when I meditate. I'm
Mhm.
curious if that resonates, and what does your practice look like today, if so?
Mhm. Yeah, so I would say that back in the day, this was how I meditated or how I saw meditation, like really this dissolving of the bad thing, essentially. But
Yeah.
it was not like in a observatory way. I didn't stand across from the bad emotion. I was the bad emotion. I um I lived it. It was not the observation of what my mind was doing. I was so immersed in it that there was really no difference between, there wasn't this observer and the observed duality, but it was pure being, as I will explain to you later what I mean by this. But in a content-wise, a state of unraveling, of like clearing out, which just simply had to happen. It was all this, um, stored, as I mentioned, stored emotion, stored belief, which dragged me down immensely.
Mm,
And it was like cleaning the house.
yeah.
And right now, and of course, there were realizations after this, because this was just like to get things out the way first, like the heavy lifting, as I told you earlier. And after this, as the pressure, so to say, of suffering became less and less, also these practices became more subtle and subtle, for thoughts to arise and to then observe thought, then to even think stuff like, who is this observer even? Is there this duality even of the observer and the observed? Which I'm saying right now, no, there's not. This is not about. So I'm a non-dualist essentially, although I also would like to give some caveats like to this whole non-dual thing, but for the sake of like this conversation, it's easy. I can easily say that I consider myself to be a non-dualist.
Mm. And can you explain non-dualism just in simple terms for anyone
Yes.
listening?
So non-dualism essentially means not dual, also not two, but oneness. It's the name for the one thing, which is not a thing, that all religious and spiritual traditions throughout history had as its aim, so to speak, as the goal, which is not really a goal. That's why you see me struggling here with saying goal. A lot of the time, it's the place where language fails, where understanding fails, where silence is. It's only silence that is able to like hold this understanding, not to discredit form in any way. So if we say that, for example, if we observe our minds, thought might be a form. It's also the same thing. Otherwise, it wouldn't be non-dual. So if we say there is the observer and there's the observed, which might be a thought, for example, it wouldn't be non-dual. It would be only the appearance of difference. It seems to be different, but really it's one. It's oneness appearing differently. And also we know, or I know myself to be this, I am that, which comes from Advaita Vedanta, that I'm saying that this ultimate reality, which is also called in Advaita Brahman, which is peace, bliss, happiness, and which is also still pointers, This concept of pointers might be familiar to people from spiritual traditions, where it is said that, like, imagine the moon and there is someone pointing to the moon, and all that I can say to you right now, even all words, all ideas, all feelings are only ever pointers to this moon somehow. I can only show you the pointer. And even words like oneness, wholeness, peace, happiness, bliss, all of these are pointers. And I've said to a friend I had a conversation with yesterday, we came to this and he agreed with me that all words, all pointers essentially are insults to what is best expressed in silence and what we claim to be ourselves. And there are many names. There are many names, infinite names, maybe, and also many paths. There's not only this one path, not only this one tradition, but maybe if we look at the present, there might be as much as 8 billion different pathways. So it's different language for all of us. It's different kind of practices, different kind of beliefs, emotions, really grasping it, putting it into words, world views, which in my understanding all lead to this same goal, which someone else might totally disagree with this. They say, no, my peace is my my goal is peace or whatever, happiness, but then the bridge is like pretty soon it's there. While others might say it's money, but if we introspect all of these things further and further, you eventually get to what is best expressed in silence. And knowing this as ourselves is like liberation, because it's this, I am that. It's not something that would be outside of me. It could never be outside of me. It is me. I know it most intimately. It's the most mundane thing also. It's the most boring thing also. It's who I know myself to be from direct experiencing before the mind comes in to think or feel stuff about it. It's this place which is uncaused, which is timeless, ever present, it's always now. That's where all the presence talk and traditions come in. But yeah, there are maybe infinite ways to talk about this, so I should maybe stop at this point.
One of my favorite, so it sounds like you follow Ramakrishna, because if you're,
Yeah, I'm familiar with Swami Savapriyananda,
Yeah,
and
from
I've
the
watched some of his videos. Yeah,
yeah. Well, his like his kind of phrase that stuck, past after his passing was as many faiths, so many paths, right? So, and that can be translated also to like as many like there's infinite ways to the infinite, basically. It's
yeah,
the same idea. Um, yeah. So this we're getting into very heavy philosophical territory here with this the one thing I just want to add is I feel like one way to think about it, not the infinite, or one way to relate to this idea is like we can know, like if you pull up Google Maps of a city, you can like read and understand the roads and the how the city works and what it looks like and where's the parks and all these things. But to actually step foot in that city and to go walk on the sidewalks and drive the roads yourself and go into the shops and talk to the people and experience the city and then from there develop your understanding and perspective of the city. That's what we're talking about. Like
yeah.
we're trying to like map something that is impossible to like explain with words. It's something that has to be experienced.
I
Yeah.
would also encourage, like, if someone is listening and they have no idea, maybe, or they simply follow certain traditions where they take what is said from authority, but they can see themselves longing for a more personal understanding. What's beneficial is to come to your own words, to come to your own explorations, really. So it's take the courage to like name what you might have an inkling of what we are talking about right now and put it into your own words. Maybe grab a piece of paper or something, a pen, and then just like let it flow. And it's so impactful because you will see your own mind trying to grasp, which ultimately it can't. It's beyond this grasping. It's like, also I like the terms as pointers, the nameless or the unnameable, because but to come to this place yourself that you find your mind to be unable to name it, and that's what we are talking about, and we know ourselves to be that. So maybe this is a bit of a clarification combined with a personal practice opportunity.
Beautiful. Yeah. There's so many ways you can explore this. Just go to ChatGPT and start talking, and you'll get some ideas. Okay, so one thing I'm always curious about when we get into, because clearly you have a deep, both it sounds like experiential understanding of what we're talking about and kind of intellectual understanding of it, right? I mean, I think you articulate it really well. I've watched a couple of your YouTube videos as well. I think you do a really good job, better than I can, honestly. Um, I'm very curious, like, how does this all actually come together for you as you live your life? Like, what's the application of all of these things as Tim, who's walking his who wakes up in the morning, brushes his teeth, goes through his various activities? How has this kind of changed the way you approach? And you can answer it intellectually, but I'm also curious, like, if there are actual examples of what that looks like.
Yeah. So maybe before answering your question, I want to point out again that this is not at all for me a philosophy. It's not about philosophy at all. It's not something that I somehow invented with my brilliant mind, or something that I'm constructing for myself to be out there. It's not something that is there for me because I constructed it, and not for you, for example. It is pre-existing. It has this claim of being a truth, and therefore it can be discovered, but only because it's pre-existing. It is really there. It's true, and you can come to this through this experiential approach, because, as I said earlier, it is what we are as you explore your own faculties, different kinds, your body, your mind, and so on. It's all the same thing. There's really no wrong path to it, really. And the shift that simply happened is, once you realize you can't understand it, the ways of exploring become different. You shift your attention not only to your thinking, maybe you stop shifting your attention to your thinking like pretty much at all, but you pay much more attention to your body, for example. And this is where your question comes in again. Overall, I can describe the effects of knowing myself as the nameless.
Beautiful.
Which is peace, happiness, bliss, lasting. It's not by accident anymore. There's never this feeling of, there have been feelings like this, of course, but right now I'm at a certain point where all of this stored emotion, stored beliefs, and so on are hugely cleared from the system. And my mind and my body right now are well settled into this understanding. But for the mind to understand, we can say easily peace, happiness, bliss. So imagine a mind that works for yourself, not against yourself. A mind to be with that is pleasant, which is producing most of the time pleasant thought or constructive thought. But for me, the most pleasant way for the mind to be is like no mind. So I enjoy long periods of time throughout the day where there is no thought arising, or very silent thought, which is really not, because there's no focus on it. It doesn't get any louder or bigger than it has to be. It's like a soft inkling somewhere at the corner of my field of awareness, let's say. And emotionally, it's not an emotion, I would say. It's what's underneath the emotion. Once all the emotion come and go, what underlies these things is peace, happiness, bliss. It's not that I would be doing something to get this. It's simply I stopped doing all things, and now I don't have it in the sense that I'm this person that would somehow be different from oneness, from what we are talking about, the nameless, but I am that, and as that, and therefore there's also no need to attach to this feeling, because it's just there. It's something you fall back into, that you relax into, that you surrender into. It's never something that I accomplish. It's not something, it's grace, essentially. So it's,
Yeah. That's so beautiful. I'm in a season right now of a lot of releasing is happening. I think there's obviously many different ways to describe what you're describing. The way I would describe it for myself is it's like a releasing of like the resistance to the moment, right? Whenever I feel a resistance to what's happening right now, like even as you were speaking, I noticed my mind started to wander, and I noticed the tension of that thought, and then I just let the tension like exist, and then it just kind of faded away, and the thought disappeared. Right? I wasn't fighting it, and I think there's just like this constant flow. So I really want to understand. Like I don't know why. I'm just curious to understand kind of like the one day. Like, what does one day look like? If you give me an example of like, let's just say
I'll be specific.
Yeah. Put this into like, imagine someone who has no idea what we're talking about is listening. Yeah. How would you explain it to them?
So let's take the perspective of like someone, for example, there would be someone, a guest in my house, and what they would see, like this.
Perfect. Yes.
Yeah. So you would see me wake up in the morning without an alarm, like not to like stress the system from the beginning on, And right now I have the luxury, but also there is when you tell your body, or your body knows essentially when it has to get up on the next day, when there isn't all of this junk in the system. But this has to do a lot of like from clearing the system. But I'm deviating again. So I'm waking up without an alarm. Then I don't eat until midday, or maybe not at all. So I'm only eating 1 meal or 2 meals a day. For the past few months, I've been on a very light fruit and veggie diet because I was concerned with like taxing the body as little as possible, because food, for example, is very light to digest. It stays in your stomach for a short amount of time and also leaves the entire system quickly. And therefore, the body doesn't have to do this much protection against it. For example, if you take meat, it stays in your system much longer, and there has to be more work done in your digestive system. So it pulls or draws energy away from, for example, your brain, but also like hugely complex. But essentially, the goal was to create in my system as much lightness as possible, which also led to me losing weight. And that's also why I'm now experimenting with like a ketogenic diet, because I don't want to walk around like a stick man. But for this certain period of time, this was very, very beneficial. But usually, before midday arrives, I will do something online. I will go to my X profile. I will go maybe to my YouTube account to record a video. Also, there's a secret project I'm working on that I'm pouring a lot of my time into as well right now. But maybe I can describe this way of how this would be different from someone who doesn't have this sort of realization. And it's not that I don't experience myself as being someone that really decides what's happening. It's much more of an outflowing, unfolding of what I know myself to be. But it's very effortless. In Chinese philosophy, there's this concept of Wu Wei, which is like, means roughly effortless action. And so there are many things happening. I'm very productive, very clear in my mind. But the things are just happening. I'm not fighting this unfolding of happiness, peace, bliss, because I know myself to be it. And also I know it to be there from experiential. It's not something that I have to convince myself of, because I know myself as it. It's much different than like the intellectual understanding of it. It's similar how you talk to like actually visiting the city or reading all kinds of things about the city and then imagining it, what it might be like. But I know myself to be like walking the city, and there are many beautiful things in the city. As you are there, you then see, there's this beautiful park, there's this fountain, and I want to drink some water because my throat is sore, for example. Or there's this beautiful red apple, and I want to go over there and grab it to taste what it's like, and so on. It's an ongoing exploration, which is really an expression of this lasting, very lasting, and relieving joy. And this leads to taking more action, which I might have seen as more risky or uncomfortable in the past, because I'm functioning from a place of more rest, of more contentment, of which is in balance essentially. and therefore it allows me to put myself out there on the internet and start talking in crazy ways like I'm doing right now. And also another way of saying it would be to be much less fearful. So in any area of your life where fear is holding you back, doubt is holding you back, this comes into play. And from then on out, you really prove to the mind and the body, because the mind and the body can still be in doubt about all of this. They can be, depending on your diet, depending on your activity levels, a million different things. They can at times be doubtful of this nature. Doubts can still arise, but the predominant way of knowing myself is this peace, happiness, bliss, and therefore it enables me to take more risk and so on, be more courageous, move more boldly, and stuff like that. So yeah, then it's midday. Maybe I eat something or I don't. Afternoon goes on in a similar fashion. I also do like a lot of calls online right now. So with people from X, which it's all about like figuring out, is there opportunities to, for example, work together, not in a sense of like coaching, but in a sense of a partnership. So co-creating. And yeah, then also, of course, exercising, which I do a certain kind of exercise, which is not my own. I follow an exercise program, which you can find on YouTube. It's from a guy called Mike Chang, and he does a workout called Flow 60, which is a combination of agility movement, of stretching, of strength exercise. Also breath work is in it. Also meditation is in it. Also body tapping is in it. So it's like a one-stop solution for like all kinds of different stations in your body. And yeah, then usually in the evening, I will have one big meal. So this is where I get my calories from, so that I don't starve. And then in the evening, I'm toning down. I'm putting like more heaviness in the system to really relax, go on the couch, watch something like with my girlfriend, TV, and so on. And the next day, it restarts again.
Beautiful. Oh, I love it. This is so cool. So how has okay, there's so many things I want to ask about this. I'll let you choose which one you want to go down. One is, how has your relationship with your girlfriend changed since all of this has happened? If you're willing to talk about that. Also curious, this realization that you've had of your true nature, was it a like moment where it's just like it just clicked, everything just like made sense, or was it kind of a gradual buildup? Did you kind of sense that it was coming? What did that kind of look like? And also, my third question is, what is coming through you right now? What do you feel you're being asked to express or create at the moment? Which of those feels most alive for you?
What was the third one again?
Like what do you feel right now is coming through you, coming through your essence to be created or expressed?
Maybe I will talk about the second one.
Perfect. Let's do it.
So this question of like, was it sudden or was it a gradual thing? And I would describe it because I've also went through all of this sober. So I didn't use any like psychedelic drugs, which is very common these days. It's all happened in an ordinary state of consciousness, and therefore it was gradual. Although I would say that there was also this aha moment or this eureka moment. In fact, while watching a video from Swami Savapriyananda, as he talked about direct knowledge. So, and this was also an interplay of me being unable to name the nameless, and then this combination of direct knowledge, a video like this. And this felt like final liberation or something, which is still a concept, in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I could also easily see myself like the whole time being in this way. But there was, if we want to speak in terms of like time, then it was a certain point where this final realization happened. And from there on out, it didn't leave me anymore. There was no more this feeling of I am trapped in thought, or I have lost it, or any kinds of these thoughts. So it was really a process that took my whole life, really. But as I described earlier, this unfolding from university days on, I think it has been a time span of 9 years. Yes. So it was
So it was
gradual, but the last veil, and there's also like this talk in spiritual traditions of like the veil just lifted, this recognition, not intellectually but being wise, this I am that, and that's how it's been ever since.
And did you have any kind of like transcendental experiences along the way where you felt this oneness and connection, and you viscerally,
I
felt
could
the
say
bliss and
to
ecstasy?
you right now, but that's kind of boring. I could say all the time. So even like right now, this would also be fitting, would be fitting of the third question, which is true, by the way. I'm joking about this right now, but it's totally true. It's like oneness is here right now. It's never somewhere else. But yes, I've had, in fact, one, maybe you could call it mystical experience. I've never talked about it, I think, before. No, I haven't. And it, I'm not even sure if I want to. Maybe not, because I do think it's very helpful to explore this in an ordinary state of consciousness. And it's not necessary to have a certain experience of a certain intensity, of a certain seeing stuff and so on. It doesn't have to be this way, although I have to admit that I was very relieved once I had this experience, that there would be, it was, you could say, like psychedelic or DMT-like, without using drugs, because it opens up the mind or proves to the mind in a different kind of way that this isn't just all made up. It's, kind of difficult. I also like these teachers of the past, like recommending like not using drugs, for example, because it's only like temporary, and you somehow like leave your current state, then you return and nothing happened really. So the work has to be done, the integration needs to happen, and so on. So there's much more utility in exploring your ordinary state of consciousness and finding the oneness within that, which I would say the best way of doing it is silence. Once the mind is silent, and there's much more, you know yourself to be much more of being than anything else.
Got it. So you don't have to explain like the experience, but I'm curious, did it happen because you were there was a desire to experience this, or did it happen spontaneously?
There was the desire, and it was way of reaching it, which was spiritual practice, you could call it, like flexing your body in certain ways, like moving up the energy from the bottom of your spine to the top, and so on. It's it
Got it.
was about Kundalini awakening.
Yeah. Fascinating. Yeah, I mean, personally, I'll share. Like, I definitely have this kind of desire to have one of these experiences, not because it's, you know, it's a cool thing to have, and oh my gosh, everybody look at me, but because it gives me undeniable direct evidence of these things that I know. Everything we're talking about, like, I know in my heart, in my body, in my soul is true, and it informs the way I move and live. Um, and it's a process. Like, I don't think I'm at the level of realization that you're describing, but something about having this experience that just like it erases, even if there's a 0.0000001% doubt of any of this, right? It erases that.
Yeah.
So, but what I've noticed in, like, because I'm very active in, like, on Twitter, obviously, and I'm also very active on, like, TikTok, where a lot of people talk about these spiritual ideas, and also some other places. In Austin, where I'm based, there's a lot of spiritual community here, and I've noticed that most people, um, they are chasing these experiences. It's like it's like they're in a desert, and then there's just an oasis, right, that has water and trees and fruits. That's what they see this as. Like, this is like a relief from the suffering of this world. And once I experience this, then it becomes like, it means that I have elevated above the human. Like, it is the ego just doing what the ego does best, right? So I love your discretion to not share about what it is in too much detail, because, like, it does become, if someone listening is like, oh, I want that, I want to experience that too, it becomes a very clever way for the ego to take control.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any thoughts on that?
Also, it's a great excuse for the mind to have of saying to you, "You are not there.
Mm.
I am lacking this experience. Therefore, I'm not at the destination already, which you are. Also, you yourself are right now there. You describe it as not being at this level of realization or something, but that's not a thing. There,
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I know that's true, but there's still some kind of perceived gap between, like, again, knowing the map versus walking the streets of it. And that's what my mind likes to go and point to, like, oh, notice the gap between what it is supposed to be and where you are. But I'll be honest, that thought has been, not that belief is dying. I'm beginning to see what you're talking about,
yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah, I can just tell you, you are where you want to be already
Mm.
right now. And it's effortless. It's not something you now in this moment. I can see you thinking that you then somehow would have to understand or something. It has it's an issue of like timing, because what you're trying to grasp is ungraspable. It's not understandable, but by way of being, you are this. You are yourself before the mind enters, before the mind comes in, trying to understand, feeling a certain way, imagining certain things like, it should be this way, this way, this way. But it's before all of this, it's during all of these thinking and thoughts and way of feeling. And it's also after it. It's like, that's why I like to say it's so ordinary. It's so familiar. It's very intimate. It's how you know yourself to be
Mm.
without all the performance, all the acting.
Mm. Do you feel like you need to, like, to understand what you're saying and to realize what you're saying, one would actually have to, it's like the know thyself thing, where you have to understand, like, what are the ways that, like, what are the beliefs that are running, what are the programs that are running on your computer operating system, like, becoming aware of each of these to let them go.
There are different ways of answering this. So there would easily be a way of saying there is no operating system running at all. Because everything else is the mind and mind identification trying to figure out what it would be like to run without an operating system. But the mind itself, it's only the operating system, which is not needed. And therefore the mind can't grasp this, because as the mind knows itself to be like only thinking, I am the one. It's your identity based in thought and in feeling. I am the one who has to figure this out, which is illusory. It's not there.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. It's a good reminder.
Yeah, it's heavy. It's super heavy for the mind. Like, it's essentially the mind is dying.
Right.
Like mind. I want to say this better again. Mind identification is dying. It's not about not being able to think anymore, to feel anymore, and stuff like that. Of course not. But it's this identification, the attachment to having an identity which is imaginary, which is only there in thought, which is someone who thinks about themselves as being a real person, and so on, and having feelings and stuff like that. But it's all imaginary. It's all relational. It's never absolute. It's not by way of being uncaused, unaffected. This is because I think that there's much utility in this, although I consider myself to be like non-dual, but in the dual understanding lies a lot of utility, because once you introspect the observer, the subject, it gets you very close to the final thing, because the observer has this quality of being nameless, formless, unaffected, unconditional, and so on. And once you really get an understanding, the mind, not you, the mind gets certain understanding of, or you could say a non-understanding of this, because it's not really an understanding. It's already by a way of experiencing. You know yourself to be the observer, and as you introspect the observer, it becomes impossible for the mind to understand. And from this place of, there has to be a reliable place for your mind to fail against, like a wall, where your mind, it can never get through. It's losing its way to understand. It's impenetrable, and the mind has to see this again and again, not infinite, but 1,000 times or more, that it needs to fail in the face of your being, so that it becomes, you can't unsee that what you are is not the mind trying to understand, but the being in which, within all of this, the mind is trying. But the mind is just a small aspect of our being. But that's like the whole problem, essentially. Most of the people think that in this small mind, that's who they are. They attach to like the small mind. But like the being is so big, and that's where all the suffering arises also. There's this idea of this attachment of I am in this certain way. It has a lot to do with identity. I am smart, I am dumb, I am beautiful, I am all these kinds of things. But once we have to move through this, all this imaginary kind of stuff, what could happen, what has happened, how is it, what has it done to me, and all this kind of stuff, is all story. It's all made up from the mind, but the mind is not being. It is within being. It's a tool. And also a beautiful way, sorry to interrupt again, an easy, super easy way to relate to like being, and now the mind can come in and think like, what's this being? It is you. That is who you are. And the mind is a tool waiting for like wide application. You can use it, you can pick it up. Here, mind, go at it, so to speak. But you can also like take the mind, place it on your table, and let it do nothing. There can be simply no mind, no thinking arises, or it can be very silent in a way, which I described to you earlier.
This is unbelievably helpful. Like, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Like, what you said about the mind having to butt against this wall over and over, that resonates so much. I felt just so much joy when you said that.
And it has to. And I think that's maybe lacking in commonly like the spiritual traditions you can find online. It's like it's also like maximum compassion for the mind. The mind is not something to get rid of. This somehow the mind, it is causing all your suffering, but only not because of itself, but you are handling it wrong. And the mind is doubtful only because you've handled it so poorly in the past. And therefore it deserves all the evidence it needs. But the evidence is being unable to describe your being, for example. This failing, I've put it as failing, but it's collecting evidence. It's convincing the mind again and again and again and again. Same with thought. It's with an emotion. So whenever an emotion, which is not peace, happiness, bliss, arises, it comes, but it goes. It's always not lasting. And they want to be felt, of course. There's also like deep love, deep compassion towards your emotion. It's not like emotions are bad. I don't have. It's also the mind-identified person. I don't have to want to feel this way. Somehow I don't want this particular arising in myself. I resent it, but there is no imaginary person who could resist or not resist this. It wants to move through you. It's also an honoring of yourself, because you are being, and within yourself all of this is arising, coming and going, and otherwise it would be boring.
Yeah, right. And that's exactly. Like I've noticed that, like, when I'm meditating, especially right now, if I feel uncomfortable feeling come up, and usually there's like a managing that happens where I'm like, okay, let me love this emotion. Like there's a command, love this emotion, right? And then I've realized recently the nuance where that creates tension, a little micro tension in my being every time I do that, because I'm trying to create an outcome.
Yeah.
Rather, when I just hard to explain this, but like if I just allow the feeling through, there's this spaciousness that like surrounds it, and that the quality of that spaciousness is love. Like it's just there, like it's just the default state.
Yeah, totally. And that's what also would be the pointer. It's not a pointer. The term I would have given you anyways, it's this allowing. Because allowing is not so much about, still you could say allowing is, I have to allow it. There's some of this me and I am, but allowing it's passive. It has this falling back quality, surrender quality, where you don't own feeling in this way, or even not, you are not positioning yourself towards this bad emotion, but it's just there within you, and it's an allowing. It's hard to explain, but I think allowing works much better than loving, as you just described. Not that you would need any sort of like affirmation coming from me, but from my own personal experience, it's the same way.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, again, the fingers pointing, right? And so it's like, how can we make it as obviously clear as possible what we're pointing to?
Yeah, and I think we should give much effort to convincing the mind or bringing the mind along with us. Although the mind knows, because we have proven to the mind again and again, it's beyond the mind itself, but the mind can come to certain understandings. Also, there can come a deepening in understanding of the mind. There can be a development of teaching, essentially, of the words that are, although they are insults to ourselves in a way, we are lovingly progressing this deeper and deeper understanding, which is a form of embodiment. Like not really turning this way of being not into a certain state, or not knowing it only as a state, for example, in meditation, but you bring it into your ordinary day-to-day life all the time. But the mind knows itself to be maybe a state you can sometimes reach in meditation. But once it realizes that it itself is not the whole thing, and that this being is always available, it can simply stop. It's also about all efforts should cease. It's this the ultimate falling back into yourself.
Yeah.
Which, of course, you know yourself. It's the most obvious. That's the real problem, maybe. It's too obvious.
Yeah. That's so true. Yeah, this is I mean, I know we're recording a podcast, but this is truly like food for my soul, like what we're talking about right now. So thank you.
You're most welcome.
I have some more questions. How are you feeling
Right now?
right now?
I feel very excited. My hands are getting a little bit cold. I don't know why. I feel very, as usual, very, very open, very light, a bit playful, still, so peaceful. Yeah, that's about it. Also excited because I love talks like these. It's really where I like that when I get questions like these, it's really stimulating to my own mind, to my own being, because it's getting harder and harder for me myself to come up with like triggers or even with questions, because as I'm resting as this peace, happiness, bliss, also the mind, it becomes much more gentle. It's not so pressing anymore. It's not, there are still things. I don't want to say that I have attained this perfect embodiment, although we have to be cautious with this also, because if we say that we are already that, this means that realization is already perfect, but still there's something going on. I will have to introspect and really maybe find new ways of talking about this, where really there seems to be a certain period of time where the mind and the body accustoms to this realization, where they become more beautiful, more aligned, more in service of you compared to than before, where the body and the mind would be obstacles, seemingly. They never were, but you were, because you misunderstood yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I I'm curious, like, so one area I noticed, because I think you mentioned a couple times already this idea of we the meditation doesn't end when we get up off the cushion, right? Like it's a day long, lifelong kind of practice, but really it's a way of being. Um,
Yeah.
I personally have the hardest time, or like it's the most challenging to maintain, or I'm just going to use the verbiage that I have to remember my true nature when I'm like around other people. I feel like that's where a lot of the slippage happens. Um, I'm curious, like, is that the case for you? Like, how does all this translate to as you're talking and conversing with different people in your life?
Um, so obviously, who you know yourself to be is never coming in and out of these situations. But what is happening or might be happening, because as your body and your mind comes into contact with other bodies and minds and so on, there can be a certain sense of tension arising, for example, in the body, also on the mind, because I'm not exactly sure how all of this works, but in some way, of course, we are all, if we say we are one, there's this oneness.
Hmm.
There's also, if we come into contact in like physical places, there might be certain interference of like mind space, obviously also emotional spaces. And what changes, I would say, is that it's not only your way of, or really the content of yourself is changing, because there are other people's minds playing a part also. It's not only your own mind, and it's not only your own body, and there might be some sort of interplay which makes the own mind or the own body feel more foreign. But ultimately, I'd say that bringing
Hmm.
this, so that's obviously the goal, so to speak, to make your inner reality
Yeah.
the outward reality. It's to make it the same thing. And also, then this wouldn't be happening anymore. It has to be something with the nervous system not being able to regulate,
Hmm.
being in certain presences, feeling certain kinds of things, maybe even things beyond thought and emotion, much more subtle things. This might also be where like certain spiritual attainments might come into place, um, where you have heightened sense of perceptions in a certain area, which you then, yeah, maybe might confuse this feeling of unease or tension to somehow be not of yourself. Then you think of the other person and he did this to you, but you should claim all of it. Take like radical 100% responsibility for all of it. It's still you, but the content of yourself changed.
Mm. Mm. Okay. It's again, you're describing something that's very like it's so nuanced. But do you feel like in your life that how'd you describe it? Do you feel like you're able to be you around others pretty consistently now?
Yes,
Beautiful.
yeah, and it shows up as moments of relaxation during conversation, for example,
Mm.
like really relaxing, just saying to yourself, the mind go, maybe it's fine. But also really the sensation in the body, like laying back a little, breathing for a moment, and coming to this. Also, I can see myself when I've listened to someone speak. I'm usually very alert already. It's also when the mind is still naturally, or hopefully, if you're a good listener, at least. Once you're really with the other person, the mind becomes very still, and then it becomes
Mm.
very easy to be in a place of no mind. But I think it's still important to see that the mind happening or not happening has nothing to do with your being. And it's also not something you as being are doing. You are not doing the thinking. It's maybe even better to see thinking as that simply occurs on its own, might or not be, might happen or might not happen. But it's really just it's your servant, maybe. It's your advisor, it's your helper, but it is not you. It is of you, but it is not you.
Mm. Just keep hammering that home. Keep hammering it home, you know?
Yeah. And we should.
The mind will keep, you know, bashing into that wall until it realizes.
Yeah.
I was going to ask something else. So the question I really wanted to ask, it just escaped me. I'm going to ask a different one. So you have a background in Christianity, is that right?
Yes.
And then you found your way into Advaita Vedanta, which is like Hinduism in a way. And I'm not saying you've converted, but yeah. So I'm curious, what does that kind of journey or story look like, and what have you learned, and how do you put that together?
Yeah, that's, for example, a topic I'm still very interested in, because there is obviously religious conflict, for example, in the world right now. And therefore, I'm interested in this idea of harmony of religions, which is also found in like Swami Sarvapriyananda's work. And I'd say there is harmony of religions is already here, although it does not appear to be like this at all right now. So don't misunderstand what I'm saying here. But let's take Christianity, for example, because this was my first attempt being a child to come to an understanding through all of this. And as long as you know yourself to be the mind as an appearance, it's not really there, but it appears to be that you would be there. And in this same way, God is very much real. And the way of knowing him might be unknown to you. It's this feeling of atheism, this problem of divine hiddenness. If there is a God, where is he? I can't seem to find him. And what really opened the door for me there is the mystical approach, the esoteric approach, so not exoteric, where it's a transmission of knowledge based on authority. You simply take it as a given, and then you simply believe it, and then it works. It works perfectly fine. But I wasn't so fortunate. So if there are people who go on, it's not blind faith, but who can find themselves being able to just believe in God, knowing God to be God is love, that's enough. Like I'm envious of people like this, but this hasn't been my path. I always had deep within me this. I think it has to do something with my destiny for this lifetime. I don't know even if I believe in multiple lifetimes, but it is so within me so much that I simply had to do it at some point.
Sorry, I may have missed it. What are you referring to?
This urge of having to know God.
Okay.
And also this way of knowing God. So belief never worked for me. It does now, but it didn't.
Different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can relate to that. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. I'd say that most of the people we see in like these, see online even, and who tend to find their way much more easily through the Eastern traditions, because most of them work through direct experience and not by simply taking all of this as a given, which works fine. But also in times of like growing confusion, as of right now, I would say even, I've read somewhere yesterday or so that Bible sales in America are at a like new all-time high, or even maybe like in the past few decades on a new high or something. And this really speaks to this sense of like there's so much confusion, there's just no anchoring, and therefore belief works, devotion works. You are so out of touch with like whatever's going on that you are willing, you make yourself willing to believe all of this, and it's fine. It's totally fine. It's totally a valid path.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think like what, just to touch on that point around, there's so much confusion and chaos in the world today, and there's a lot of negative sentiment you could feel just in the air. I think we're actually having a collective spiritual, we're on the brink of a collective spiritual awakening. And so it makes sense that these Bible sales are very high right now, and people are searching for meaning. It's like the entire world as we know it doesn't make sense anymore the more time passes. So, well, where do we go for answers? And of course, you go to these traditions that have been around for a long time. So, and there's something. So the reason I asked this question about this, Christianity going into like Hinduism and all this stuff, like I have been exploring Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, different sects within Buddhism. I'm into the New Age spirituality stuff as well. I've explored that scene, and there's something about Christianity in particular that really, it was for my journey, for my heart, it just resonated deep. And it's this idea of love and brotherhood and community, and like there was something that was, it felt like I could relate it to the modern world, and I could bring it, like I could see how this makes sense in the world as it is today. And it turned on this like devotional aspect of myself. Now I wouldn't say like I'm not like I don't worship the way that they teach worship, but there's like this respect, I guess I feel, and reverence I feel to God. And in my own way, I also want to know God. And honestly, I'm curious what it is for you. But like one of the ways I find myself exploring this question is seeing God in the ordinary, right? In the mundane, in like the way someone speaks, the way someone shows up, the art they create, in nature. Like there's just like this feeling I get when I feel God. And that feeling I identified first when I was like reading the Bible and talking to my friends about Christianity and stuff. And I was like, wow, like this has always been here with me. I just didn't recognize it as God's kind of like signature, so to speak. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I'm curious, like what, A, if you have any thoughts on that, and B, like what has your exploration so far looked like?
Yeah, it's a bit of a difficult one, because although there are these multiple ways up the same mountain, each way in itself is like highly specific and also very different than all the other ways. So it's not so easy to come from one path and then step into another path and then therein really understand like the whole mind, body makeup in all of this. The way of talking, it can be so different. These concepts differ so much. Even concepts like, because the word God, for example, is used in all kinds of different pathways, but it can mean like very different things. And I think that's where a lot of misunderstanding comes from. Once, for example, Swami Sarvapriyananda asked Like, are you God, for example? And because the concept of Brahman is not exactly like God in Christianity, I would never make the mistake in Christianity, if we talk about Christianity, to say stuff like, I am God or something like that. It would be like heretical. It's one twist you can make in your mind to understand Christianity much better is to function inside of duality, where where you are what we talked about the entire time, like identification with mind. That is you in Christianity. That's the fallen, sinful human and so on, who needs to be rescued, all this kinds of stuff, who is essentially lost on its own. And therefore, the much bigger picture is needed, which is God, which is love, which you have to let in, have a relationship. And therefore Jesus came and he showed us what does it look like? How is God embodied, perfectly embodied? Because Jesus, in Christianity, we believe Jesus is God. And we want to be, we make our efforts to become like Jesus. He should grow within us. We want to become more and more like him. A beautiful way of saying this is no longer I live, but Christ lives within me. Comes from New Testament. I think it's Corinthians somewhere. That's what unlocked Christianity again for me, because I have a very good friend who is strictly Christian, and he would, if he knew the ways I'm talking right now here in this podcast, I don't know if he would be too happy with me, but that's really what unlocked our relationship again, because he follows very strictly, and it's very important on these devotional paths that they strictly exclude all other ways of truth, because once they open up to other ways, they lose the way of functioning, this way of devotion, of giving yourself away for what you believe in. That's the difficulty in opening up their strict views on, like, if there is truth in multiple religions, for example. And but this is it is possible. I'm also like very much interested in this, like really stepping into all these kinds of different paths and trying to find this unlock moment where you go, I see. It's I have to talk. You really, it's being multilingual in spiritual terms.
Yeah. You're translating. You're translating. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And like Ramakrishna himself, he obviously in Hinduism he realized God in several different forms, but he also realized God in Christianity. He realized Jesus, like he merged. He had a vision of Jesus and like merged with him.
Yes.
He also tried Islam, and he merged with Allah. So like I know to someone who's only seeing their own way, it's hard to see, but from my perspective, and obviously from your perspective as well, like it's the truth that there are infinite ways, right? There isn't one right way.
And your own way might include discrediting the other ways.
Fair. That's a really important nuance.
Yeah.
That's a really important nuance. Which that's a really good point. I find myself resisting that, but I think you're right. Yeah. Anything else you want to add in there?
Maybe just to clarify for Christian listeners.
Okay.
Jesus is God. And that's the truth. And I would never say something against this understanding, against the tradition of like Christianity. I'm still a Christian myself. I'm a Catholic, and I don't intend on leaving the faith.
Okay, let's make a pivot away from this.
Yes.
I remember the question I wanted to ask before. So you are waiting on the results of a law exam. And here we are for the last hour and a half going deep into like, you know, dismantling the mind and all these things, right? How do you put that together? Law is such a logical, like, it's like, to me, it's like the antithesis of spirituality and truth. And I know that's technically false because everything is underneath the umbrella of it. But how do you reconcile that? Like, what has that been like for you to navigate?
So for me, law is it's a lot about dragging myself. It's a lot about effort. It's a lot about failed attempts. It's really I connected to like failure, although I successfully finished like university in law. But right now in like these lawyer exams, I have failed in fact these exams one time before. I've already written the exams last year and I failed, which like was world's ending. And now I did write them again, and now I'm waiting on the. So it's still very unsure, very much unsure of if I'm even able to become a lawyer, which I still want to do because I have put all this work in, and I also want to honor myself for suffering through all of this. And yeah, but ultimately, I think that if all my efforts, not efforts, let's be clear, not efforts, effortless action I perform online um, would work out in a big way where I could earn a living from doing it, I would definitely consider stepping down from my profession as a lawyer. Maybe not completely, but maybe half time at first and eventually maybe even completely. So within my heart, there is this calling of becoming a coach. And right now, my mind is very much trying, as always, to figure out all these kinds of different ways of how this might unfold. But the beautiful thing is that, and I've posted this, I think, yesterday, that life tends to unfold in ways which are much more beautiful than what our minds are able to
Mm,
think of. So I simply trust this unfolding um, to keep on being so beautiful as it has been, and to surprise me in ways which I would have never imagined.
beautiful. Okay, I have to share this. So, first of all, you've been an incredible coach. So I just want you to
Already,
know. Yes. I mean, I just,
thanks.
I
I'm
can,
honored. I'm really honored. Yeah,
I say that with my whole heart. I mean that. Um, and second, and we can talk more about this, later, but I am, Andres and I, we have our Saints in Pairs podcast. We are starting a coaching collective, and we want to invite certain types of people, and basically we want to create a space where you don't have to do much work, and you'll get clients, you get people that actually want to work with you. Um, and there's it's a community of people that we personally are vetting, um, that meet certain, just like we want to have heart, we want to have like truth as central pillar. So that we're defining what that is. But I just want to plant that seed because I would like someone like you would be perfect to have on there. Um, so anyways, we can talk about that later, but I just wanted to put that in right now, because I feel this path for you in some way. Um, I felt the coach come out on this call, to be honest.
yeah.
So yeah,
I have, in fact, maybe if we have got maybe a few more minutes, 5 or 10 minutes, no, 5 minutes, I keep it short. I have a beautiful synchronicity story when it comes to all of this coach stuff.
please. Yes.
Yeah, should I share it? Okay, great. So it was on my birthday, in fact, I think last year, last year or the year before that, as I also was starting on X. So it has to be 2024. On my birthday, I had this question, this exact question in mind. Should I become a lawyer or should I become a coach? Exact wording. Later this day, my family came to visit and my mother made a gift to me. It was a book, a small book with pictures of me from like the early days. So quickly after I was born and so on, like very little child pictures and so on. And I was asking this question before they came, obviously. So I was like, attorney or coach. And then, I kid you not, I will go grab something now and show you.
Okay.
Hopefully you can see it.
Wow. Is that a journal?
Where it says coach. It's so crazy. It was wrapped, like my mother had it the entire time. She also created this book like 20, what was it like then? 26 years ago. Somehow took this book and it doesn't even make sense to me because it's also in English, this front cover. And I was like unwrapping it and I couldn't believe it. And also my girlfriend, she was in on it. She knew about it, that I was asking this question. And I just showed it to her and it was like, I can't believe it. I cannot believe it. And it says coach. So this was really a moment where like the broader unfolding of all of this, where I could not have made this up. It was such a clear answer to the question I've put out that it really, not single-handedly, but it was like a big step into this direction of I should really become a coach. And also it made this priority, it set the priority state straight. It's not a question anymore of what I should do. It's just being a coach, trying this with all my heart if this wants to work out. And somehow, if it doesn't, I would have some security, but it's not my real plan. It's, yeah.
Amazing. All right. Well, I feel like this is a great place to pause for today. This has been honestly so much fun. I cannot believe it's already an hour and a half in.
I've had so much fun as well. I'm also hugely grateful for the opportunity. It's the first podcast I've ever been on. Also, I think you are doing a beautiful job of hosting this podcast. You are providing this place of openness. I can really see how interested, how attentive you are, how also receptive you are. There's very little arrogance within you. There is a lot of openness and willingness to listen to what I'm saying. Without this, none of this conversation would work. It's such a co-creation. It wouldn't have been possible to unfold it this way if you didn't provide this atmosphere and all these kinds of stuff. So huge compliment for the work you've been doing and hopefully will keep on doing because it's such a blessing to all of us. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Tim. That means a lot. Where can listeners find you if they want to connect with you?
Yeah, so my username on X as well as YouTube, it's at TCWPractice. You can also reach me via email at tcwpractice@gmail.com. And I also provide a link tree with all my links,
Perfect.
either in the X profile or in the YouTube profile.
We'll put that in the description. Absolutely. All right. Well, thanks again, Tim, and we'll catch everyone next time.
Thanks for having me.